Over the last 60 plus years, there have been a plethora of many different Marvel shows, all varying heavily in both tone and age writing, but only one show, one man without fear, has managed to stick out. Daredevil. Unarguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest Marvel show ever made, due to its more mature tone, down-to-earth storylines, and most importantly, realistic character interactions. Easily putting every other MCU show to shame, even though that's like the lowest bar imaginable. But what made Daredevil so special? What led to this insane cult following online, with thousands, if not millions of people clamoring for the show to return after nearly 7 years? It all starts with Season 1. For the time, and even still now to some extent, Daredevil Season 1 was groundbreaking, taking this PG-13 universe, mainly aged at families, and thrusting it into the real world, tackling much more grittier and darker themes compared to the typical expectations of other MCU projects at the time, and even to this day. Where the show succeeds the greatest though, in my opinion, is in its grounded storytelling, which is still a highlight to this day, as more and more street-level characters in the MCU sort of abandon their roots in favor of more grandiose movie outings. But not the GOAT. You had to stay loyal, even if that's one thing Matthew Murdock debatably isn't. For the vast majority of Season 1, Matt wears the so-called Man in Black suit, in favor of the more iconic red Daredevil suit that most people would be accustomed to, which in my opinion again, really helps to sell the realistic approach that the show is aiming for, and also because the Season 1 red suit is kinda ugly. Mostly that cowl. Why does he look like that? Where Season 1 manages to stand out from the other two original seasons is in its character moments, by having small scenes to Matt and Foggy taking on what would look like losing cases from the surface, such as Karen Page in the very first episode, or Mrs. Cardenas midway through the season. By taking on these uphill battles, we're shown the resolve of Nelson and Murdock to stand up for the little guy. Where it is most applicable is with Karen Page. Quite possibly the most unlucky character in the entire MCU. Getting roofied and framed for murder, accidentally getting a colleague killed, getting kidnapped and shooting a guy 7 times in the chest, getting kidnapped again but by a ninja cult who maybe committed the MCU's 9/11, we're not really sure about that, getting her brother killed, getting hunted by Fisk, and the list just kinda goes on forever. But the point is that by having Matt and Foggy defend her, it shows that they're committed to helping out the little guy, as well as being the perfect introduction to Matt's powers, as he listens to her heartbeat to tell if she's lying or being truthful about a crime she has no memory of. While his powers are pretty much one-to-one with the source material, his radar sense is still a little weird, being a world on fire rather than just the minimal red shapes from the comics. At least it's better than the stupid echolocation vision from the 2003 movie. The comics version of the radar vision is still the best though, don't at me. Through Karen's unfortunate predicament, we as an audience are shown just how brutal this world can become, with a hired gun sent after Karen to finish the job, which is circumvented by the mythical Man in Black, which is thanks to one man, Wilson Fisk. A man who's deluded himself into thinking that he's helping Hell's Kitchen rather than hindering it, and who will just decapitate a man for interrupting his private life, or push a man to taking his own life for just uttering his name. I still think it's weird that they don't call him Kingpin until the last 5 episodes of the original show though. Like, I guess offering yourself for mentioning Fisk's real name is more gravity behind it, but still though, this man blew up half a neighborhood just to eliminate one single gang. He stood on business. Why don't we get MC villains like this anymore? They will simply never be him. Although Fisk's physical brutality is arguably topped by Nobu, secretly a member of the Hand, which is just the worst league of assassins, at least from what the MCU had to offer. Wielding just a Kyogetsu Shoge, he's able to just completely fuck Matt up by just dragging him across the floor with every impact, every slice. You can feel just how visceral every single hit Nobu gets on the Man in Black is, which is a huge testament to how good the show's sound design is. Especially that theme, injected into my fucking veins, man. Back a track. The significance of Nobu's fight outside of pushing the boundaries of violence in the show is to also push Daredevil as a character. Him believing that he accidentally killed Nobu with a stray shot to a light bulb. Also crazy that this man kept going while burning alive. They do not make shows like this anymore. Peak television for real. The ultimate turning point in Season 1, however, occurs in its season finale, with Fisk seemingly getting his comeuppance, with his business partners either being dead or on the run, and the FBI hot on his trail, only to play the system itself thanks to his dirty money, when he encounters the finally realized Devil of Hell's Kitchen. Although to give Fisk credit, he almost beat Daredevil anyway, but no one is immune to a metal pipe to the face, unfortunately. Well, except maybe for... Personally, I think it's a coin flip between Seasons 1 and 3 for which is the best, but there's just something about Season 1 that keeps dragging me back in. The almost unfiltered aura is simply unmatched, which is unintentionally helped by the low-budget look and feel of this initial first season. But how do the other two hold up? Not very well, unfortunately. Okay, I'm kidding. Mostly. Season 2 just simply feels too overbloated in a way. with the Hand storyline directly conflicting with the Punisher's trial, but I feel it sort of hinders interest in the season overall, as one storyline is clearly far more interesting and less convoluted than the other. It's the Punisher storyline, by the way. That's what I'm talking about if it isn't clear. Although, less convoluted might not be the best word when it comes to the Punisher in the MCU. The Hand in general felt completely misused in the MCU, focusing on this half-baked idea of a black sky, which was first introduced in season 1, but finally developed upon in this season. Although I would put develop in heavy quotation marks. The black sky, despite not being a prophecy, but more of an act of nature, is still treated like a prophecy anyway, with seemingly random children being born with exceptional martial arts prowess, people being able to be identified as a black sky at once. It kinda just robs the special aspect of the black sky. What were they cooking? Granted, these types of people are hard to find, as again we were told last season, but like, even though Elektra dies at the end of the season, it just kinda loses most emotional impact when you remember, oh yeah, the Hand can just go find another black sky. And while the argument can be made that it's harder to find an adult black sky, it's still probably possible. I mean, are we to really assume that the Chaste killed the majority of the black skies except for Elektra, that one kid in season 1? Also, the love triangle between Matt, Elektra, and Karen felt extremely unnecessary and contrived. Why would you do this? Okay, the good of season 2 is clearly within the Punisher's half of the season, which is also easily the best live-action adaptation of Frank Castle, even if they slightly overcomplicated his backstory with the Punisher's own spin-off. Although the misdirect the blacksmith framing Frank with excessively bloody shootouts is the crimson cherry on top of the season, and that's not even mentioning the trial of Frank Castle, which, while not the most accurate depiction of a court case, is simply gripping storytelling. I don't think a full season solely focused on Frank Castle as the main villain would necessarily work without feeling like a drawn-out game of cat and mouse at a full 13 episode season, but I still feel like that the Hand's grip on the season really drags it down and prevents it from being truly great television. Although still miles better than whatever the hell Disney is doing with their streaming shows at the moment. But finally, we must tackle Daredevil's temporary final season, and it's simply too peak. Season 3 focused on Fisk's manipulated release from prison under the FBI's naive watch, resulting in Fisk getting a temporary stranglehold on the federal government, and also the introduction of the MCU's greatest OC, Special Agent Nadeem, the yin to Poindexter's yang, holding the seemingly only moral conscience in the entire bureau, and of course as a result is quite literally taken out back by Poindexter, who slowly devolves into insanity as Fisk unravels his true nature, framing Daredevil for a string of heinous murders. And speaking of the man without fear, this season easily puts Matt through his greatest arc, as he has to climb out of his depression after losing both Stick and Elektra during the underwhelming events of Defenders, going as far as to push Karen and Foggy as far away as possible to fully immerse himself into Daredevil, even tempting with the idea of finally taking down Fisk once and for all, but stopping himself at the literal last second, in favor of making a deal that would fuck over Fisk if he ever tried to come after Karen or Foggy. Ending the original run of Daredevil with a rebirth of Nelson and Murdoch, now renamed to Nelson, Murdoch, and Page, and one last cliffhanger of Poindexter fully becoming Bullseye. And although Netflix's run of Daredevil ended here, the Devil of Hell's Kitchen would make infrequent appearances throughout the years, before finally suiting up for real in She-Hulk, and through flashbacks and Echo, before finally coming back once and for all. Here's to 10 years of Daredevil, easily putting 2003 Trainwreck to shame, thanks in part to the incredible writing, both the major and minor characters, impeccable soundtrack, and unbeatable acting, with its incredibly talented cast, because without them, we wouldn't have this marvelous show. So thank you, Daredevil, for being so peak.